Today's session is going to be on job descriptions. So how to build them in TouchStone, how to use the job description features, and then I'm also going to talk about how to actually implement and use job descriptions as a management tool. So we started off by discussing the importance of building the 4 functions list. This is really important when it comes to the job descriptions, because if you haven't built your 4 functions list and just listing out of all the processes, then it becomes more difficult to build the job descriptions, because the job descriptions are built by linking the processes from the 4 functions list here to the boxes on the chart. So if this 4 functions list has not been built, then you're going to be in a situation of having to add processes to build the job descriptions, which is fine, but a better way to do it is to look at everything as a whole in the 4 functions list, list out all these processes in their sub-functions and categories, and then decide which processes are the accountability of which people or which positions on the org chart. So work on your 4 functions list. Then last week we talked about building your organization chart. You're going to need to build your organization chart before you can build the job descriptions. So think about the future vision of the business, where it's going, and build out your organization chart. When you select a box from the chart, it takes you to the job description for that position. So this is a built job description. And all of these processes here have come from the 4 functions list in one place or another, and they've been linked to this position. So let's kind of start at the beginning. So if you have a position on your org chart, and I'm just going to put 1 so we can start with a blank position. And then you select that position, it takes you to the job description. So this is what the job description will look like if it hasn't been built yet. It's going to be blank. First thing I want to remind everyone of is if you want to edit the title of a position, you just select it right here in the box, and then you can change the title or edit it. Whatever you put in this field here is what's going to appear in the box on the chart. Right underneath the position title is what we call the objective of the position. So this is the purpose of the position. Why does it exist? So this can be a sentence or a phrase. What's the overall result of this position? What is the top priority of the position? This kind of defining sentence can help with recruiting and hiring. It can help with setting the stage for an employee. It can help them to kind of really get grounded in what is it their mission to do. This can be longer than a sentence if you like. I've seen them, half a paragraph before. It's completely up to you what kind of style you want to build the objective in. To build the job description, we then would go here where it says Add Existing Process. And it's called Existing Process because it would exist over here in the 4 functions list. So this tool, Add Existing Process, allows you to look over at the 4 functions list and decide which processes this position is accountable for. The job description's got 2 sections to it. There's strategic and tactical. So strategic processes are higher level processes. They're generally development processes, strategy processes, managerial processes where you're getting results through other people. So the higher level work of the business, you might say. Generally, these strategic processes live in the guiding the business function. So not exclusively, but the majority of the time, all strategic processes that are linked to the strategic section of the job description are going to be in this function because this is the guiding function. Tactical is the technical work. So tactical is the non-managerial, getting it done work. Staff work is another way that it's defined as. It's very common that managerial positions, like this one, say, are going to have a lot of strategic processes. So all of these things related to managing employees, development, reporting, higher level work, and then a few tactical processes. In a fully functioning managerial role, somewhere around 80 to 95% of the work that they should be doing should be strategic. It should be developing the department, managing the employees, quantifying, measuring. If you have a managerial position and they've got a lot of managerial processes, but they spend the majority of their time doing technical work, so like the sales manager is the salesperson, then that's not really a managerial position. Tactical positions like this one have a lot of tactical processes. Doesn't manage anyone else. There may be situations where there's a few strategic processes. So this position has to do decision making and also competitive analysis maybe, which is higher level. So to build the job descriptions again, we go where it says add existing process. And when I select this, the first decision I have to make is whether this is strategic or tactical. So start with strategic. If it's a non-managerial position and they don't do any strategic work, then clearly just go right to tactical. But if it's a managerial position, then start with strategic. Then you hit the next drop down where it says sub-function. So then you will see all the sub-functions from your 4 functions list. So all of these sub-functions are in the getting, doing, guiding, running function somewhere. So the best way to approach this is to think first, know what the position is. So if it's a salesperson, then you probably don't need to go to production management and human resources. You probably go right to sales. And then I'm going to see a list of all the processes that are in the sales subfunction. So think about these one at a time and say, well, does this position have to do the appointment process? Yes, then I'd select it. Do they need to do daily to-do? Yes. Do they need to set first appointments? Yes. Do they do lead generation? If you see one on the list they don't do, then skip to the next one. Now I've just got my control key held down. That's why it's highlighting these. I think on a Mac it's shift, not control. But if you hold down your control key and click, it lets you take more than one process at a time and you can skip processes. Then I hit save in the bottom corner here. And now TouchStone has just linked all those processes I selected to this box on the chart, which creates what we call the job description. So the job description, in essence, is a listing of the processes, the work that each position does. Now you can see when I'm going at existing process and I'm looking over at the 4 functions list here, since I have my 4 functions list built, I see all these nice processes here. And I can quickly add, and then save. So it becomes really easy to build the job descriptions. If I didn't have my 4 functions list done, and you went add existing process, well, you wouldn't see any processes to add. So that, in that situation, you've got a choice to make. Either you can go and build your 4 functions list out the processes over here, or you could use this toolbar item that says add new process, and you could literally go and add processes directly to the job description. So if I click add process, again, it's asking me strategic or tactical section. I'm going to put in the process name. So what is the work? What is the name of what I want to define? And then TouchStone asks me, well, where does it live on the 4 functions list? So even though I'm building this job description one process at a time, adding those processes directly to the job description, I still have to put the processes somewhere on the 4 functions list because TouchStone wants to keep this comprehensive list in the 4 functions. It's always going to make sure that all the processes are inside of the 4 functions in one place or another. So you choose the subfunction that this process would go in, and then you hit save. So then TouchStone's just added it here to this job description. But if I select it, I can see from this trail here that I put it in the guiding, or this should say getting, in the advertising subfunction. So it lives here on the 4 functions list. It's been added, as well as being added to that job description. When you're on a process, like we are now, so we're right on this process I just added, we're on the process tools page, I can go here where it says link to job description, and I can see which job descriptions it's been linked to. So down here you'll see it's been added to this position. And from this view, I can remove it, take it off, and I can add it just by selecting it. It's asking me strategic or tactical section. I hit link, and now it's back on. So this toolbar item, the link to job description, which is on the process tools page, is just a quick, easy way to see or make sure that you've got the process linked to the correct positions. It's also a place to go if, let's say, you built your 4 functions list, you built your org chart, all the job descriptions are built, and then you add a process to the 4 functions. So you're looking through any of the functions and you decide, well, we're missing something in the human resource area. So you go and add it, and then you could go to the process itself and go link to job description and put it on the job descriptions that are accountable for it. So this is kind of a quick way to, number one, see that you've added the process to the right job descriptions, and two, to when you add a new process, to make sure you then link it to the correct job descriptions. Well, let's go back. Once you've added all the processes to the job description, if you want to remove one, you can use this black remove X, and then you see these big remove buttons next to the processes. And if I hit remove and I say OK, then that process has been removed. Another way to do it is the link to job description. So I select this process, I go link to job description. Now I see it's on this. If I want to remove it, I just remove it. But when you're on a job description itself and you see a process directly on here, or multiple that you don't want anymore on this job description, this X is a quick way to kind of remove multiple at one time. This is the export arrow, and you're going to see this all throughout TouchStone. You see it on the process tools page, you see it on the 4 functions, you'll see it everywhere. And this export arrow allows you to export any of the information from TouchStone. So you can export it by printing it, which would send it directly to your printer. So now this is launching my printer, and it's opening up my printer options. Now on this screen, if I don't want this little web address here, or there's some kind of header that's being put on it, this is all happening inside of my printer. So I'd have to go to my printer settings and remove and uncheck that box that says, you know, print web address. So we don't control this. Your printer is controlling it. So every printer, all printers are different and all the settings are different. So if you're seeing things when you go to print that you don't want, then first try by editing your printer settings. Or instead of printing, you can export the document to Word. So I can export this job description to Word. It's launching Word, and then the job description will be in Word. Or I can send it to a PDF, which is a more, uneditable format. So this would be, something that could be edited and changed. A PDF is not. I can email it. So I can email it from TouchStone, to an email address. And then last 2 features here are printing or exporting the operating manual for the position. So these 4 options you're going to see under the export arrow everywhere that you see it. You'll be able to print to Word, PDF, email, or print directly to your printer. Only on the job description page will you see these 2. So this is going to print what we call the operating manual. So what that is it's the job description, which is like a table of contents for the operating manual. And then it's going to print all the tools inside of every process in order. So all the processes here on this job description, TouchStone will print the tools inside of them. So you'll have the job description, which is like a table of contents, and then all of the content, all the documentation for every process. This could be sent directly to your printer, or you can export it to Word and then save it as a PDF, and it will be in editable format. Sometimes external operating manuals are useful in certain situations. If you're, in the trades, or you're in a very non-technical field where people don't have access to computers, they don't even use computers, and you need to have, all the processes in printed format, There are definitely situations like that. Aside from that, I recommend that you don't print, you be careful about what you print, just because the minute I export this operating manual, well, now I've got another version of it. And if somebody goes in tomorrow and updates one of these processes, then suddenly that's out of date. And that's the problem with paper operating manuals, is they get out of date the minute they're printed. So if you have the option, allow TouchStone to help you into more of a paperless environment where you're giving employees access to TouchStone. You can give them read-only access and just to their job description. It's quite easy to do in account administration. If they want to view, look at, learn, study, reference processes, they can go right to TouchStone and do it. So that is the basics of how the job descriptions work. Super easy. You have a box on your org chart. You go to that position. You use this toolbar item, and you link processes from the 4 functions list to the positions that are accountable for them. If you see something that's missing or there's a process that's not in the 4 functions, you can go right here and add it directly to the job description, also adding it to the 4 functions. Once the job descriptions are built, it's good to analyze them. So look at each of the processes and make sure that this position is actually accountable for these items. You can put them in order of priority. So things that are done, you can move to the bottom. Just drag them to the bottom of the job description. Processes you want worked on first, second, and third, you can pull to the top. So you put them in order of priority. There may be processes that are for the future that aren't done by that position right now or aren't done at all because it hasn't been documented yet and you don't have the resources or the time to actually do that process, but you want it there as a reminder of in 6 months or in the future it needs to be worked, it needs to be developed. You could take all of those and just move them to the bottom, and they'll remain red and they'll be at the bottom. Once all the processes have been documented on the job description, you could put them in alphabetical order or however you want them. But when they're in development, I think it's good to order them according to how they'll be developed or how they'll be documented. So once this process of all the job descriptions being developed is complete, it's then the time to start documenting your processes if you haven't already. So you can look at one position at a time and decide what's the biggest priority here. In general, it's good to kind of start with the simplest positions first and then move up, so the bottom up. So I would start by documenting this entry-level position, and then I'd move up to the junior, which may have these processes on this one as well, but then there'd be higher-level processes on this one that aren't on this one, and then move up to the senior. Managers may get together in management meetings done over a series of months where they work as a team to document the managerial processes. So all the managerial processes are on all of these people's job descriptions, all these positions. The manager of marketing and sales does performance reviews. They have one-on-one meetings. They do systems innovation. They do problem resolution. These other positions do that as well. They do performance reviews. They do process innovation. So a lot of the managerial positions will have the same managerial processes, which is a good thing because you want managers managing consistently. So for those positions, either the president does them, builds them all for everyone, or pulls a team together and you develop them together, which I think is better because you get collaboration from all the managers, you get shared ideas, you get buy-in because everyone's agreeing that this is the way we're going to do performance reviews. You can get departments together headed by the manager or headed by one team leader if there is no specific manager yet. So the salespeople could all get together and say, okay, let's work on this job description. Let's start with how to handle requests for information, then let's do this one and this one. You could assign individuals the task of documenting the process. So if I have 4 salespeople, I may decide I want each one of them working on a specific process. And this is where these little dates can come in handy. So right here, I'm going to uncheck this is complete. But right here in the title, I can put in my initials or the initials of the person working on it, and a tentative due date. So when do I want a first draft done? And then I save it. It's right here in the title. Then when anyone's looking at this job description, they'll see who's working on it and when it's supposed to be done. So sometimes I get asked the question, what is our project management process documentation plan inside of TouchStone? We need a spreadsheet. We need, a Gantt chart. I don't think you need any of that. The best way to use TouchStone is to use it. And this is a perfectly acceptable, easy way to assign an accountability for process documentation and to track due dates of it. The person logs in, they go right to the organization chart, they go right to their job description where they know they're supposed to be, the processes live, and then they see their initials and a due date. If a manager wants to know what the status is, who's reached their due dates, has someone forgotten, is it aggressive enough, they go right to the job description. They can see all the dates and the people's initials. I've even seen people put in more extensive notes here, like, done, please review by this date. So this is a note to the manager. I'm finished with this process, now I need you to review it. So the manager would see this right on the job description, say, oh, okay. So they go to the process, they look through the documentation. If they see something that needs to change or something that there needs to be more of, they could build a form right here and say, process notes, and put in notes right inside of TouchStone. I want you to change this, do this, and it's right inside of TouchStone. If they're happy with the documentation, they say this looks great, they go remove all this content, save it, and then mark it as complete. Now this process is finished, and now move it down to the bottom of the list, and then assign the next one. So they go to the next process, they put that employee's initials in and another due date. I've seen the development of processes happen this way in 1 or 2 people companies, and I've seen it in companies with 50 or more people, and it works perfectly fine. Job description, who's working on what, and due dates. So let's talk for a minute about how to use job descriptions, because the creating of them is important, obviously, but the using of them is even more important. So the actual benefit of having them to a manager and to a person or an employee is the whole reason for doing it. I think job descriptions get a bad rap a lot of the time because they really are just kind of complicated hiring documents. So most job descriptions that I've seen that businesses use, they may use it as a way of describing to a potential employee, this is what you do. And then they may use it in hiring if they're using it well, where they can look at the work items and decide what kind of position do we need, what kind of skills are we looking for. But then they just kind of get set aside after that. And they're not active management tools. Well, the job descriptions in TouchStone, if you haven't noticed already, are very straightforward and practical. This is just a comprehensive listing of what a salesperson does. And at its best, all this documentation is finished, and it is a complete training guide, a complete implementation guide. It's a way to manage and keep the employee on track with what they're supposed to be doing. It's a way of gauging how one employee is doing compared to another in a very practical way. It's a way of keeping employees on track with what they're supposed to do. As an employee, it's a way for that person to reference what it is they're supposed to do, be reminded. And more importantly, make it better. So once you have something documented, you can then look at it and measure it and quantify it and say, how could we make this better? If we have a certain conversion rate, how can we work on the needs-based selling process to up that rate? What more techniques could get added? So this becomes a useful tool for the employees themselves to be able to use to do their work better, but it's a phenomenal tool for managers. It's the tool. I don't know how managers manage without something like this. If you don't have something like this, you're just kind of shooting in the dark, trying to hope that you've, given your employees the information that they need to do their jobs well. And you can't really evaluate how they're doing because it's all so subjective. Maybe you have some reports which show results, but then how do you know what contributed to those results? What they're doing or not doing, which is making them worse or better. Everything becomes very personal. It's all like, either I like you or I don't like you, or you didn't do that well, it's your fault. I told you, but you didn't listen. I told you 5 times. Well, I've already shown you that. It's this constant personal icky conversation about trying to make the employee better. And it ends badly most of the time. So with a job description, with clear processes, a manager can have a new avenue to manage with. So I'll give you some examples. First, recruiting and hiring and new employee training. I mean, obviously, this is like paramount. So in recruiting and hiring, if I have a clear, specific job description like this one, not with kind of mucked up subjective phrases on it, like act like a leader or, manage the department. That one cracks me up the most. This is your job, manage the department. Well, how? What are you really saying there? Act like a leader. Okay, well, do you act like a leader? Do you have leadership qualities? Yes. Okay, good. I believe you. It's very subjective and kind of not easy to, impossible really, to implement and enforce. So a clear, specific job description like this one. If you do have old job descriptions like I'm describing, you can easily turn those into TouchStone job descriptions. You just look at the work items, and if you've got something like manage the sales department, well, think about the processes that are necessary to do that. If you've got a work item that says act like a leader and motivate your staff, well, maybe you need a leadership process. Maybe you need an employee motivation process, which has tools in it to do that. So when you have the job description for recruiting and hiring, I can easily look at each of these work items and I can say, what kind of qualifications does this employee need, first of all, and make a list of those. I can look at the content and say, in order to do this process, what are the minimum qualifications for that? What do they have to know? What experience do they have to have? Then I can take it one step further and start to develop interview questions related to the processes. Have you done warm lead selling? In order to do warm lead selling effectively, you need to have X, Y, and Z qualities. Explain to me how you have those qualities. Explain to me when you've done that before. How do you deal with customer complaints? This is the way that we do it. How would you handle this situation? So you can literally make interview questions based on the actual work of the position. New employee training. Obviously, this is the checklist for the new employee training. There's the HR side of that, which is a whole other process, but the actual on-the-job training, well, this is I don't need anything more than this. I go one process at a time, and I train the employee. I can even think to myself, how long should it take somebody to be able to learn how to do the warm lead selling or to learn how to do customer complaints? How much practice do they need? How much study and education? What kind of information or what kind of way am I going to teach them this? How long will that take? I could put a number to each one of these processes, a number of hours. It could be months and months, or it could just be a few days. And if I add up all those hours, suddenly what do I have? I have quantified what it's going to take to hire a new employee. What's the amount of time that it will take me to fully train them in this position? My management time as well as the employee's time and what I have to pay them. Then I start putting numbers to the time, and suddenly I have a dollar amount. If we have to turn over salespeople every 6 months, this is what it's going to cost us. Now that's a very powerful thing to know as a manager. All the documentation inside of every process is the training. So lead referral development, all this documentation, this is the training. I don't need extra training processes on referral development. I would go through the work plans. This is the step-by-step set of tasks. How am I going to teach someone this? How do I teach them how to fill out the checklist? We can practice these scripts. We can do role plays for the scripts. So this documentation is the training. Then there's ongoing training for an employee. So you hire someone, you do new employee training, and then as a manager, ongoing, you manage and train them. Job descriptions are, this type of job description is exceptional for that. So number one, I've got a listing of not only what they're supposed to be doing, but how they're supposed to be doing it. And I can use this as a guide to kind of teach them and make them better. We can focus on one process a month. So say the request for information has been fully documented, everyone's trained on it, they've been using it for years. Let's have a process of the month, where in our department meetings, we focus on that process. Everyone's job, all the salespeople, are to think about that process for the month, look at the documentation, spend maybe 1 hour in the month just reviewing it, asking themselves, is this still the way we do it? Do I have any techniques that are better? Is the best of what I'm doing handled here? Is any part of it not working? And then you bring that to the meeting, and you're in the meeting, and the manager spends half an hour maybe and talks about the request for information. Who has ideas? This is the flow of it. Let's talk about it. Let's look at the letters we send out. Let's look at these forms we created. How can we make this better? So this one process a month idea with a job description is really great because it reinforces that process with everyone, which is key, but then it also allows you to focus on innovation. Where I was talking to a client the other day, and they were saying, well, we really need a process to make sure once a year we review all the processes in TouchStone and update them. So we were thinking on January 1st, we'd spend a week going through every process and updating it. And I was like, wow, I appreciate the effort and the thought that went into that, but no, you can't do it like that. You can't wait until a year passes. If the development and the innovation of the processes has to happen every day. Otherwise, everything's going to get so out of date so quickly, by the time January 1st rolls around, it's going to be a mess. It's going to be way more than a few hours to clean it all up. And more importantly, that they would have lost the experience. They would have lost the immediacy of the innovation. They're losing this dynamic of a process-dependent business and the value that gives to employees, the constant improvement idea. So it has to happen all the time. And yes, it's important to think about a method by which that happens, but it has to be more immediate. So this approach of having a process of the month, or even a process of the quarter if you can't get to it every month, is a really valuable way to do it. So having the employees focus on the documentation and focus on innovation is huge. And again, the job description is your template for that. It is your method for that. There's also more immediate practical ways that the job descriptions can help on a day-to-day basis. So there's a process in the library called employee one-on-one meetings. And it's in the library. It's right here. So you can pull it from the process library inside of Guiding the Business. And this gives you a way with an agenda and how to have one-on-one meetings with employees. So communication is extremely effective or important when it comes to a managerial subordinate relationship. Even if you don't have time to have weekly one-on-one meetings with every employee, or if you're an employee and you're not getting weekly meetings, at least try to push for once a month. So we're talking about an hour once a month. You waste more time looking at email than that. It's not that much time. And I'm saying it because I always get the argument of, well, I don't have enough time. Well, you're wasting so much time by not doing this. It's just ridiculous if you quantified it. So once a week, I think, is fabulous management, but even once a month is better than nothing. So have this one-on-one meeting, develop an agenda, and this process has got an agenda form in it. You can do this in the control panel, too. You can call up the agenda forms and fill them out and save them. So on the agenda, list the processes from the job description that you want to talk about. If you want to do one process a month, list that on this meeting agenda form. Have it be a part of items to discuss, goals achieved from this period, goals achieved from next period. So as a manager, if you're going to manage employees with processes, which is what you want to get towards, believe me, it's the easiest type of management to do. You manage the employee with the process. So I'll give you an example. Let's say that on the salesperson's job description, there's a process for how to do sales follow-up. And that process lays out, you send this email, you follow up with this time date, and if you follow up and touch this process 6 times, we have experienced that the conversion rate can be 50%. So this is up to the manager to kind of document that process and get the statistics together. So let's say I'm working with Bob throughout the week. He's a salesperson, and he just is not doing his sales follow-up. I know he's not following the process, he's not getting the results. I would put sales follow-up on the agenda. And I would say, Bob, we have this process for sales follow-up. You don't seem to be getting the result. What is wrong with the process? How can we work with the process to help improve your results? So you notice how I'm saying, not what's wrong with you, Bob? You're lazy. I know you weren't making those phone calls. I can see it on your phone log. Why? I told you last time. Instead of that, I'm saying, what is wrong with the process here? I know this process works. I'm pretty sure it does. Let's look at it. What is not? Are you following these steps? How can I help you? What more does the process need? So from that type of conversation, you're making the problem the process and his inability to implement it well. Now, it might boil down to the fact that he is lazy and just isn't following it, which means that he needs to go down a disciplinary track and possibly get fired at some point. Or it might be that he just doesn't understand. It might be that he never had the qualifications necessary to be able to do it well. Anyway, it boils down to either he's going to get better or he's out. And the process allows you to kind of look at that objectively and make that decision as a manager from a very solid, tangible place. It gets rid of the emotions, it gets rid of the negativity, it gets rid of the, she's just mean, all that stuff that goes on with management. It's more about your focusing on the process. So that's a part of the one-on-one meetings. You can do the opposite with it. You can say, man, Bob, I noticed that your follow-up rate is just awesome. Like your conversion was better than everyone in the whole department this month. Let's look at the process here. Like, what are you doing that's not in this process? Let's put it in. So the opposite can be true. But every little complaint that you have about employees, if you're a manager, there is a process solution to it. You just may not have the process. So having these one-on-one meetings, you can use the job description as a way of communicating about what's going right and wrong with the processes that the employees are using. Now, there are rudimentary things that have processes that you can have these types of conversations about. And I'm just getting a question about this now, so I'm going to say it. And there are one-off things or on-demand things that work that employee does that isn't documented. You can still handle those types of issues in a one-on-one meeting as well. So if you don't have a process for whatever reason to point to, you can still talk about it. So anything down here about unresolved work issues or personal issues. If someone has, attitude problems or there's non-rudimentary processes that you're just asking them to do that they're not accomplishing, you can still use that in this agenda form. So someone's giving me an example. So their example is an employee shows up late for work. Well, I'm going to challenge that as a non-rudimentary process. So what they're saying is, what do you do if an employee is constantly showing up late? Well, if they're constantly showing up late, I don't think that you have an employee lateness process. In fact, there's one in the library, I think. So if an employee is constantly showing up late, yeah, there's one here in the general library instead of guiding the business that you can take a look at. So it is a matter of not having a process. If I have a process, a documented process, part of my HR, my management procedures that says, if an employee shows up late, this is what happens, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I've got the task list listed out. If I train the employee in that and I say, the first time, if you're late, this is what I'm going to do. We're going to talk about the reason. We're going to try to come up with a solution, and then I'm going to give you another chance. If you're late again, we're going to talk about the reason. We're going to come up with a solution, and then I'm going to give you one last chance. Say that's the process. I train that in them, to them, with them. They know what the expectation is. If they show up late, they know what's going to happen, right? So chances are they're going to not show up late, or we're going to find a solution to why they are. If there's no process in place, then it's just me every day going, you're late. Okay, sorry. You're late. Okay, sorry. There's no process in place. So think about, if you have these frustrations or issues, what the process might be that you put in place. So one-on-one meetings, an effective way to implement and use a job description. And then lastly, performance review. So here's the performance review process, which is also in the library. So this performance review process is done annually, and all it is the job description. So I've got an evaluation form. I think I have an example right here. And I've got the processes listed. Referral process, promote and encourage qualified referrals, converting processes, warm lead, customer complaint. So I list the processes from the job description. I give them a grade or a rating, 1 to 5, and then I write comments. So the performance review becomes the job description. Isn't that like a full circle of management? You go from hiring based on the job description and finding those good qualifications and having people answer to specific processes on how they can do the job well. New employee training, you train them all in the processes. Ongoing training, you're meeting with them once a week, once a month, reinforcing the processes, having process of the month, innovating, making them better, managing to them if someone's not working appropriately, using the process to communicate. And then at the end of the year, the circle closes with the performance review. And in that performance review, you're literally giving them a rating on each of these processes. How are they doing? The best part about this is, as the manager, it's super easy to fill these out. Like if you've been having your one-on-one meetings, I literally look back at the agenda forms, I see everything that I've talked about, and I fill this out like in 15 minutes. Because I already know. I already know how that employee is doing on each one of these things. I can easily give them a rating. And more importantly, I can back it up. I can say, this is why I think this. And I have specific examples. I've got agenda forms from months past on specific things that I've said and things that have been done or not done. It's not just, well, this is how I was feeling today. And the employee says, well, why did I get a 3? Well, because that's what I think. You have something tangible to back it up. It's the worst feeling in the world as a manager where an employee is asking, well, why? And you're just like, well, I was busy. I don't know. That's just what I think about you. You have to, this makes it, again, more tangible. The employee's also not surprised either because the communication has been so good. So use your TouchStone job descriptions. They have such a huge benefit. They're not just here to organize the lists of processes. They're actually fantastic management tools. Even if none of these processes were documented, this would still be a great management tool because I still have a list of what everyone's supposed to be doing, which a lot of businesses do without, a lot of managers do without. So now I want to talk about the system of the week. So last week we discussed needs-based selling, which is this process here. So this is a process that you can rename to whatever your situation is, whether you do transactional selling, order taking, sales off your website, consultative needs-based selling, counter sales, whatever it is. You can modify the title and use concepts from this process to build out a sales process. It's one of the paramount processes in a business. It's a make or break process. There's a lot of little facets to all of the sales processes, but this is kind of the heart of it, whatever your version of that is. A process that goes along with this, is essential to this, is follow-up. So there's a new process in the library. It's going to get better over time, but it's a start called needs-based, or it's called follow-up. Let's see, where is it? Right here, sales follow-up. So you can add it from your library, or add it from the library inside of Getting the Business. I'm going to add it, and here it is, right at the bottom. So first thing when you add a process, whether you add it directly yourself, just by going add new process, or you pull it from the library and decide you're going to use it, you can go to that process and then go right here, link to job description. So this goes along with our job description conversation, and put it on the job descriptions who are people who are accountable for it. Salesperson, the manager probably does follow-up, maybe. So add it directly using that link to job description. That way you're making sure all the time that your job descriptions are up to date with the most current processes. So sales follow-up is obvious, it's essential. I think it's something that's not done well in a lot of businesses. You kind of feel like, here's my shot, I didn't get it, and then we get busy. And we go on to the next shot, into the next shot. There's more leads coming in, more sales appointments, more people coming to the counter. Let's just let go of the people who said no, or I can't decide right now. We don't have time to deal with them because we're on to the newest thing, on to the next sale. I kind of liken it to the tactical versus strategic dynamic in businesses all the time. The strategic work gets set to the wayside because the tactical, the urgent, the selling is so important. You're always going towards that. I got to get the orders out. I got to do this. I got to do that. So the building of the sales process suffers. I think follow-up's a bit like this too. There's a strategic side to follow-up. There's follow-through. It takes something, I think every industry is different, but it's something like 6 to 7 times that you have to touch, talk to, work with a lead before it converts. And depending on what you're selling, this is going to be different. But the likelihood that you'll convert that lead goes higher and higher and higher every time you're able to talk to them. It costs you money to generate that lead. That has an expense to it. So if you just give it one shot and let it go, you're losing way more money than you need to. So this process has got some techniques in it. It's got some sample emails, voicemails. It's got 2 kind of components to it. There's follow-up after a sales presentation. So after you've tried to sell something to a person. It could be whatever your situation is for this. It could be an actual sales presentation where you're sitting in front of them presenting some kind of presentation. It could be where they're looking for something specific from your website and you're saying this is what we have. So your first contact with them. After that has happened and they said not right now, no, I'm too busy, let me think about it, let me talk to my wife, whatever the situation is, that's when the follow-up starts. So there's a lot in this work plan that you can kind of go through. Anything that doesn't pertain to you, just delete. You can open up the task and just hit delete at the bottom if it's something that doesn't pertain to you at all. You can edit it and kind of make it your own. I think this first task is a really important one. Get commitment for the follow-up. Establish a date and time. So when they say, I'm too busy or I can't decide right now, well, how about if we talk at this date and time? Well, that gives you your moment of opportunity, like there it is. And they say, okay, let's schedule the appointment. If you just say, I'll call you next week, then you're losing traction with the follow-up. Then there's long-term follow-up. So you're following this follow-up process a certain length of time, and you want to decide what your own sales cycle is, what your own time period for follow-up should be. At some point, what we commonly say, you put them to drip or long-term follow-up. The long-term follow-up is important because it's kind of like your way of keeping in contact with that lead, or checking in, we call it. So the best way to actually have long-term follow-up, the easiest way, most efficient way, is to have some kind of CRM in place. A customer relationship management system where you can be sending automated emails, where you can be sending information to that lead, educational information, whatever it is that you're sending to kind of check in and keep them relevant, keep them thinking about what you're selling. Even if you're in transactional sales, website sales, always sending information to your leads, people who have bought or haven't purchased, is a good way of keeping you on the forefront of their minds when they go to make a buying decision. So this has got, send out emails, schedule out phone calls. It's got ideas on how to say things, when to say things, how to keep the momentum going. I think this point's a really good one for long-term follow-up. Continue to educate. You see this, on the internet all the time. Think about articles, webinars, case studies, relevant topics, anything that you can be sending to them that isn't, do you want to buy now, do you want to buy now, but it's more, these are, what do you think about this? And giving, sending them things that they're interested in. There's a couple scripts in here. So when you're making phone calls for follow-up, some techniques to use, what to say, when to say it, how to focus in on getting a second appointment if that's what your situation is. The long-term follow-up script, you want to think about your timing for these things. You call, send an email, call, send an email, think about 6, 7 times. Once you're done with that, it goes into long-term follow-up. Well, what does that look like? Do they get a call every 6 months? Do they get emails once or twice a month? So the ideas for phone calls would be checking in, talking about, hey, I haven't spoken to you in a while, how are things going? Sharing ideas that you have, new thoughts, and you can put all of this like into a knowledge base where you can have different kinds of ideas that salespeople use in different situations. And the continuing to educate. Always thinking about what more can you send them, what is a way to check in. Then there's voicemail or email ideas here in the process. And then there's also this, which I think is interesting, which is just kind of like 10 effective tips for following up. So this follow-up process is meant to kind of give you a framework, give you some ideas, and then again, go in and build it, make it your own. Think about what are the steps, the emails, the letters, what is your version of this? What are the scripts you want to use? What is the timing of it all going to be? And put it into the process. Delete what you don't need in here. So anything that doesn't pertain to you, go ahead and delete it because you don't want things in your process that are kind of cluttering it up and making it harder to fully document it. Any questions from anybody? Nope. Okay, well next week we are going to start to talk about actually documenting processes. So I'm going to begin by discussing how to use the work plan tool, so how to effectively document work plans, not just how to use the technology in TouchStone to do it, but also what good documentation looks like, techniques for getting that. So we're going to talk about work plans and checklists, and then the following week will be scripts, uploaded files, forms, and the rest of the policy notes. These are the two that are used the most. In fact, the work plans are used the most. So we'll have a lot of discussion on what is a good work plan and how to build one. If any of you are at this stage where you're beginning your documentation, or you've started that already, and you've got employees from your organization chart here in positions that you want to be documenting for you using TouchStone, then bring them onto the call. This is a good time to do that. Most employees don't need to know how to use all the functions in TouchStone. Really all they need to know is go to your job description, I want you to document this process, how do I use the process tools to document with? That's what they need to know. So these next two webinars, next week and the following, are good for that purpose, if you want them just to specifically learn how to document.